welcome everybody to what is going to be a very interesting and very exciting 30 or 40 minutes or so. We are sitting today in a panel session with what ARC refers to as its Technology Brains Trust, where we are going to be discussing some really interesting topics around the use of technology and other technical aspects as it relates to a whole range of things that affect us in the residential community industry. So before we start, I'm going to just introduce myself to people that are watching this video. I'm Jeff Gilmore, and I work for the Association of Residential Communities, and I will be facilitating the session today. So let's start off in alphabetical order. I firstly want to introduce Access Communication, who create network solutions to improve security of clients, and they're represented today by Vanessa. There's Vanessa. Welcome, Vanessa, and thank you for participating. Secondly, I want to introduce Dean Alkemer from Cathexis. They provide video management solutions and software to the residential community industry. So Dean, welcome to you. Great to have you with us today. Thirdly, Icons AV is represented by Cliff Janet. Icons AV is a residential and commercial automation expert and very, very loyal and supportive, as you all are partners to the association. Welcome to you, Cliff. Do you want to just say hello, or have you already done that? Cool, welcome, Cliff. All right, moving on to our Idemia, Ingo.Mutinelli, and they're involved in augmented identity in the access technology, access control environment. Ingo, it's good to have you with us today, and you're very, very, very welcome. All right, moving on to raffaelb from Impro Technologies, very involved in access control solutions, and been an ARC partner for many, many years. All right, Lumi, they're represented by andrej.vladar. He's waving, so welcome to you, Andrej. Andrej and his organization provide real-time audience engagement technologies, which has become very topical from our recent meetings with industry. All right, moving on to REDi, Corina Roska. Corina, just say hello to everybody. Corina is in the business of property technology and specifically around communications technology. You know, our portal uses the REDi platform. So Corina, you're very welcome today. And then last but not least, Vodacom Fibre today is represented by Nicol.Vanzyl. Thank you, Nicol. Obviously, the nature of your business is connecting clients to the digital world. So that's not a coincidence that we're introducing you as the last participant today, because you bring it all together. So that's absolutely fantastic. All right, welcome everybody. We're going to start off by posing some questions. We'll then ask you to respond by clicking the right buttons, and then we'll move through the process. And what we've done to advise people that are listening to this is we're going to provide short and sweet answers of about 3 minutes each, and then try and pull it together at the end. Of course, every one of these people sitting here today can be contacted, and we will try and put up a screen at the end of this video with all of their contact details. So I'm going to start with Corina. Corina Roska from REDi. And I'm going to pose a question to Corina around the fact that REDi sometimes or very often are seen as that organization or your technology sits at the center of communications technology and the communications environment in general in our industry. We've spoken about this lots, Corina, this whole notion of integration and collaboration around the whole notion of communications, the whole notion of one database, or the ability for databases to talk to each other. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about that. And if you wanted to bring in some issues around the importance of industry-wide communications within our residential estates?
Thank you. Thank you for hosting this webinar, and thank you for your question. It's always wonderful to get a chance to communicate with other strategic partners and to improve the industry at large. So thank you so much for the opportunity. It's a little bit of a rhetorical question, because South Africa is quite unique in terms of its culture and its psychology, and I really think that technology really needs to kind of pull itself together in a lot of ways. And how can we have more dominant products that integrate better, rather than having 20, 30, 50 different products that estates are having to struggle with? Some of them may not, some tech companies may not have the longevity. Some tech companies don't integrate with one another. It would be, you know, my ideal wish list is that there would probably be 6 or 8 or 10 different companies at most. And then that way, all the estates would be able to have their visitor management system, have their portal, have their sales management, have everything kind of be able to talk to each other. So being in the room with you guys really brings that to life. Like, how do we, or can we even, how do we approach that? Because that's a struggle that managers are having to deal with, you know. So yeah. I'd love to hear what everybody else would have to say on that topic, because
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks, Corina. Yeah, it is becoming something that's top of mind. One thing we cannot not rely on is the future importance or increased importance of proper resident communication, which kind of leads me to addressing a question to Andre from Lumi, to speak to us about the use of technology for real-time engagement, real-time audience engagement, where an audience could be members of the board, the audience could be a management committee meeting, the audience could be 100 or 200 homeowners who are attending an annual general meeting or an extraordinary general meeting. So how are we going to handle homeowners associations and their needs to engage their members and stakeholders, both on a formal and an informal basis? Andre?
Thanks, Jeff, and good morning to everybody in the call and everybody that's going to be listening to this. As Jeff mentioned, Lumi is a company that deals with real-time audience engagement and interactivity. And from a global perspective, seeing as Lumi is a global company based in 11 different geographies worldwide, we are seeing the imminent shift to what's being dubbed the hybrid integrated engagement environment. Obviously, as Corina mentioned previously, from a human psychological perspective, for years and years, eons even, humans have always been social creatures. So I don't think, in the light of everything that's happening now, that humans will ever let go of that kind of personal contact. Yeah. However, humans are also a survival species, so to speak, and things like peer-to-peer platforms have now become the new social normal and the new contact points for social engagement. And what we're seeing globally is it's becoming more accepted. You know, we've gone through the phase of denial, we've gone through the phase of acceptance now, and everybody's becoming quite familiar with the concept of a peer-to-peer platform and being social like this, and we're finding the advantages of it are far outweighing the disadvantages of hosting meetings like this. You know, things like travel time, global warming, being the spectrums that you go through. So we've come to realize that COVID-19 has sort of forced the evolution of embracing technology. And the thing is, it's technology that has already existed for a number of years. It's not something completely new. Virtual meetings, which is sort of our bread and butter, have existed for the last 5 years. We've been doing it in the States for the last 5 years. They're being more prevalent because of the size of the geography. But obviously now, globally, everybody has to now embrace these virtual meetings. There's no choice in the matter.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's still a lot of pushback from people that don't want to accept technology, but that pushback is the same as any other technology that's ever existed. If you look at my generation, so to speak, and I'm sure a lot of people in this call's generation, we're the generation that went from beta tapes all the way now to iTunes. And there was pushback from every single piece of technology that was let out. Social media had a lot of pushback in its early years. And we all figured it out. We all now using it. And if you look at smartphone saturation across the globe, we're looking at a 92% saturation, where 5 years ago it was at 67%.
Yes.
So there's been a huge jump in that. So I think, to answer Corina a bit, we're starting to see a lot of, now that the acceptance has happened, we're starting to see a lot of integrations happening across platforms to make everything more simplistic. So if you look at our virtual offering, for example, we as Lumi that do virtual legal meetings like AGMs, we incorporate things like Zoom as well as our own proprietary software, and we integrate them together to be able to create a virtual meeting. So if you take Zoom, for example, the platform we're currently using now, Zoom's actually releasing APIs, so application protocol interfaces that are allowing other companies to build on top of the Zoom platform for things like authentication, better cybersecurity, your own branding, create your own virtual rooms, your own virtual environments. So the integration is happening, but I still think there's this toss-up between trust and silo issues that still needs to be addressed by everybody.
Yeah.
And if you look at just the discussion we're having now, this brain trust that Jeff and Ark have formed is already testament to just how much we are wanting the integration between platforms, how much we want to make everything simpler for everybody, this one-stop environment, so to speak.
Yes.
And all we need to now do is get over the concept of these silo systems into what we would now call singular systems, which would make it easier for end users. And I think that should be our end goal, because of the lack of want to embrace new technologies. And the easiest go-to excuse is it's too difficult.
Yes.
I don't understand it. I don't want to do this. Okay. If you make it simpler and more integrated, users will be more inclined to use it. And if you look at us from a legal voting perspective, so for HOAs, for example, to do the annual general meetings, we're actually starting to see a shift globally from your standard, once a year annual general meeting to a more ongoing decision-making kind of concept.
Yes.
Because it's now virtual, what is stopping people from just jumping on a Zoom call like this, having a vote about anything from let's build a pool in our public environments, which, you'd have to wait a year to get approval to do something like that. Why can't you just do that, quickly? Yes. You release a notice, 2 weeks later, you release a vote, everybody votes, you make a decision. Yes, it's happening. No, it's not. Move on. And we're seeing things like that changing in the future. It's no longer going to be this horribly formal annual general meeting. We get together once a year, discuss all these things. We can now keep it more ongoing, more flowing. And that starts removing concepts like proxies.
Yes.
The idea of proxy voting will no longer exist, because if you can extend the voting period, anybody can vote at any time. Anybody can help make the decision over time.
Okay.
And like with anything else, we see that the need and demand of something drives legislation. Legislation doesn't necessarily drive, need for something. So I do think we're going to start seeing changes in legislation. I've seen ARC post quite a few things where people are now considering different ideas around legislation when it comes to doing things. Yes. And I think the engagement environment and how things are managed are going to change like that as well.
Okay.
So I only see positive things happening for the real-time engagement, even though it will be in a hybrid environment.
Yes.
It's still going to be a positive aspect.
Okay, that's fantastic. Got you. So it's more than a Zoom meeting. You know, what you're offering includes the entire gambit, from proxies to voting to resolutions to real-time recording of the real issues that need to be in place according to people's MOI or their constitution. Very valuable. Raphael from Impro, I'm going to direct this next question at you, if I may. Access control, you probably at the forefront of it, with other organizations. Obviously, access is a key topic, and this whole notion, Raphael, of what people are now talking about. You know, it's gone beyond the technology, behind exactly what it is. When you put your fingerprint on or you swipe your card and the boom opens, it's now a whole new ballgame in respect of screening and testing and recording all of this. Would you like to address that for us in your own view? According to you, what you believe is the future?
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, thanks for that question. I think first and foremost, the value that residential estates are offering is quickly expanding. And I think there's been a number of webinars during the lockdown period, driven primarily by property developers. And they've underlined this point very strongly, that it's no longer just about personal security. It's this move towards health security as well. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity for estate managers to build confidence with clients and with potential clients. I think first and foremost, estate managers need to use this opportunity to manage expectations. That contractor and visitor onboarding, out of necessity, is going to take a lot longer than it has prior to the lockdown. People, estates in particular, need to kind of ensure that contractors understand that there's new rules of engagement. And there's a lot of new kind of regulations that the estates are going to put in place. How contractors deal with just meal times, for example.
Yeah.
If you've got builders and you've got plasterers who are used to a lot of communication, they now have to work with masks. How do they manage that? And like you mentioned in the question, the whole tracking of symptoms. That in itself takes a bit of time, and no doubt that's going to agitate some of the residents and some of the stakeholders. But I think at the heart of this, it's all about providing protection. Yeah. And if you take, for example, Impro, who's got a manufacturing plant, there's been so many precautions that we've had to put in place for next week. Whether it's providing PPE equipment, we're going to be doing the temperature screening, checking that nobody's got underlying conditions. That there's issues around transportation. It's all been done there for the protection of the staff. And if somebody was to contract the virus in a manufacturing facility, that's the facility closed down for at least 2 weeks while sanitation is taking place. The implication for a resident is far greater than that. If they've got a contractor coming to their home who's got the virus, what happens to them? Where do they go? So I think it's a necessary step. And I think residents will appreciate whatever due diligence the estate can provide.
Yes.
I think temperature screening is not a silver bullet, but it is the tool that we have until we have testing. And as testing ramps up, I think that change. Testing needs to be more accessible, and by accessible I mean it has to be available, it has to be affordable, and you need to have quick results. And once you have that, then you're able to obviously use your access control systems to determine expiry dates on certificates and that type of stuff. And then you're able to, work out when contractors are able to come back in or when they need to go for testing again. But until then, I think screening is quite relevant. There was a security conference for residential estates here in Durban about a month before lockdown.
Yeah.
And even at that stage, residents or estate managers were already implementing temperature screening. And I think particularly relevant for residential estates where the demographic is of retirement age. You know, they're high-risk individuals. So I think there's a lot of comfort from residents when they know that those measures are taken into consideration.
Yeah.
So I think we need to see this as a positive thing, not as a negative thing.
Yeah. Yeah, great stuff. Great input. Thanks for that, Raphael. That was great. We might revisit some of these issues just now if we have time. So, frictionless technology. Let me rephrase that. Frictionless technology. Ingo from Idemia is going to be speaking to us about the importance of not taking steps backwards in our security solutions, and to perhaps look at other technologies, including what Ingo and his team refer to as frictionless technology. Could you speak to us firstly about what your view is on not taking steps backwards, but to use what we've got, enhance what we've got within the conditions that we find ourselves, Ingo?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jeff. Morning, everybody. To the fellow panelists and everybody watching. So, yeah, I think our philosophy is one of, progress. I think with us being a global business, we've got lots of use cases and lots of data that we can take from around the world. And a few of the main trends that are playing out in the world is, one, people are becoming a lot more tech savvy, which means they're aware of what technology is out there. So that being the case, we moved on quite far from general biometrics being, as you put earlier on, you put your finger down on a reader and you gain entry somewhere. When we talk about frictionless access control or frictionless technology, we're covering a few bases here. So first of all, as is quite pertinent right now, but our technology has been around for more than 2 years, talking in particular about a frictionless reader that you don't have to touch. And that's come about for a few reasons. Frictionless allows you speed of entry, first of all, which is very important to estates. Having bottlenecks at entry and exit points is a problem. So the sooner and the faster you can get through it, obviously the better for everyone concerned. Secondly, not having to touch a reader is obviously of quite a big benefit, especially as things are playing out currently, with the COVID side of things. And even less dangerous things, just from a normal hygiene perspective, not having to touch something that everybody else has got access to touch is quite nice. So our frictionless philosophy is one of hygiene and speed in particular. One of the sort of things we see play out as well on our technology and frictionless technology is the fact that you've got a lot more accuracy because you're taking so much more data points from a hand rather than just a finger. Scanning a hand is also a lot easier than placing a finger for a lot of people. So when we talk about frictionless and not taking a step backwards, we're saying how best can we see to that tech-savvy new, not new, but current sort of demographic. Everybody wants to move forward. Everybody wants to improve on the technology that they're using, and we've brought that to the fore. I think it's playing out quite nicely around the country and around the world, in fact, where people are using that frictionless technology. I mean, at the end of the day, we all want to get through our daily chores and our daily sort of movements with as little hindrance as possible. Frictionless technology allows you to do that, and if you can pack onto that some real features like hygiene, like accuracy, it becomes a very powerful proposition. So I think that's where we're coming from in terms of taking steps forward. We're also making it available to everyone. These are systems that can be put onto other systems through APIs. We're talking about Andre from Lumi was talking about APIs being made available by Zoom. There are integration kits available on our product that some of our partners, such as Raffaelb at Impro, make really good use of. And again, if you take frictionless a little bit further, that in a sense also makes it a bit more less PT to make use of that frictionless technology when you're able to use it with a whole bunch of other technology that's also market leading, such as Lumi, such as Impro. So I think we've really stayed at the forefront of how do we develop technology and make it real for those using it, and not just gimmicky. And really taking that statement of frictionless further than just saying, well, it's frictionless technology. You can really put some real data points to what does frictionless actually mean to the user, whether that be the management, the security, or the actual users within the estate. So I think it's really cool.
Fantastic. Well done, Ingo. That sounds really, really, really exciting. Thank you for that. All right. Dean from Cathexis, I want to speak to you. I want you to respond to what you believe has created this need to adapt to how this pandemic is changing norms. What do they say? We've got to get used to a new normal now. I think my wife has been saying that to me for 30 years, get to this, and let's get to a new normal, trying to get over the old normal. Now we're talking about the new normal. What do you expect to see in terms of changes in the surveillance and video management market, specifically around surveillance, Dean? Anything's happening in this life?
Absolutely. I think as a Cathexis, we do expect to see an increase and rise in risk to estates. Unfortunately, with the economic impact of COVID still rearing its head, we're still going to see a big portion of the impact coming through in the next coming months and possibly the next couple of years. We do need to be cognizant of the fact that the norm for today might not be the norm in the next couple of months. So estates have to make sure that their estate response to risks is well adapted in this time. We also see an additional, new and additional fiscal responsibilities coming through. If you have a look at some of the great technologies that Ingo and them were talking about, same for Raffaelb and Lumi, there is a cost attributed to that. Even just sanitizing the surface areas that our residents and staff need to come in contact with, there's a real cost to that. And budgets will shift and change, and how we engage with staff and how we engage with residents. There's a lot of conversation happening around, how can we virtualize the interaction and engagement with some people? We never will be at a space where we won't be engaging with anyone at all. How can technology help us to still interact, ensure that our security policies are still maintained, ensuring that we're not leaving ourselves open to risk, or even just offending our residents and staff. We still want to be able to respond in time, respond quickly. And how can technologies assist us? And that's really the challenge to us as vendors, is how can we work together and add more value to the existing technology sets that we have. So if we talk about adapting to the new norm, Jeff, as you raised, we like I said, the estate plans around their risk and compliance related policies, that's something that really needs to be relooked at. And the implementation of technology. I've mentioned before, virtualizing our engagement with staff. There's a lot of technology, including what Lumi and the guys can offer, but us even as Cathexis, where through integration of various different systems within the ecosystem that you would find in the estate, including access control, various different solutions that some of the technology vendors like Access, Impro, and Idemia have incorporated electric fences. There's so much already being used inside the estate. Now, integration of those different subsystems to be able to bring less panes of glass in front of the staff within the estates could actually create another layer of frictionless interaction with staff and residents within the estate to ensure that things can still keep on going. We might have to adapt here or there to how we interact, yes, but we actually add an additional layer of security to the way that we approach all these different aspects within the estate. And yeah, we're open to conversation. Gone are the days where we see systems running in isolation. As Cathexis, that's one of the key components that in how we see adding value is to ensure that we can add value through integration, which is something we're doing, where we can incorporate already 6 to 8 different subsystems that you already will see within the estate. And we're going to continue seeing that, where even as Cathexis, we can allow systems to integrate our solution and subsystems into a larger discussion, really depending on what the requirements are, but most importantly, what the value would be that it's going to add. We have to keep on focusing on, what's the real reason for integration? Is it going to add value? Yeah. And ensure that drives the discussion and drives the integration.
Yes, fantastic. Yeah, very, very interesting times ahead. All right, Vanessa, following on from what Dean was speaking about, if I'm going to put you on the spot, can you focus on the data analytics component of all of this? We're all humans, and somewhere along the line, someone needs to continually be mindful of the fact that whatever we do and whatever we create and whatever we look for and try and integrate, there's always a human element to it. But I want to focus specifically on data analytics and the importance of that.
Okay, great. So yes, Jeff, I think you bring up a very good point there. We can't move away from the human interaction. There has to be someone involved at some level of any of your surveillance or security access control type applications. But where we need to start moving towards is to have a more proactive, more automated type process, which starts limiting the number of people that are involved in any access control platform or surveillance platform. So the idea as to how to take this forward is to start utilizing analytics. So you say data analytics, but I mean, there are so many analytics out there on the market, and what benefit would they potentially offer to a residential estate? So, if we start looking from your guardhouse, LPR analytics to complement your access control application, I think that's one type of analytic that is going to greatly reduce the backlog at a gate, people interacting with each other at a gate, as soon as these booms can open, whether you're using the frictionless application or just the standard LPR application to grant access to your residents. And I think that would be the more widely used type of application in this type of environment. We can take it a step further, and I think Dean mentioned a very good point there about the risk that's going to be associated to the residential estates going forward. Once we start looking at analytics and we start utilizing them on your perimeter solutions, and we start saying, all right, so if we have an analytic that's able to do an early detection of a potential breach, let's incorporate that into your electric fence solution. So there we've got a couple of knocks that are happening throughout the entire process. So the analytic does the initial detection, and then you can alert the armed response. Why this is also important is that it'll limit the amount of movement that your armed response on site or your security guards, security vehicles on site, it can limit the amount of movement that they need to do around the estate itself, which I think is also quite an important aspect to take into consideration. And I think everyone's mentioned this, and I think I'm sure we're going to go into a lot more detail later, but it is all about the integration. And it's about how each singular aspect of your residential estate actually starts communicating together as a collaborative. So everything starts talking to each other, and that's where we need to head. We need to have your video management systems talking to your electric fence, talking to your access control platforms, talking to your network connected environment. I think You know, and on the back end of that, there are so many more analytics that can be used, you know, a lot more of the deep learning kind of data mining type analytics.
And there's no question that sitting in this environment today, in this technology brains trust, we'll be able to do that and move towards that level.
Absolutely.
And it's not only because of lockdown or because where we found ourselves, you know, so they're good and bad in everything, you know.
Yes, absolutely.
And when bad things happen to us, we in this industry have a uncanny and great knack of turning it into a positive.
100%. Yes.
Corina, I know Corina is very, very, very much for finding the positives at a whole range of levels. So thanks for that, Vanessa. That was fantastic. I'm going to pull Cliff in here now, Cliff Janet, from Icons AV, to speak about technologies that are accessible and attainable to our communities, and what the trends you see emerging in the respective AV technologies and the role you're going to play going forward. Over to you, Cliff.
Thanks, Jeff. Great to be with everybody discussing the new normal. From an AV perspective, to answer your question regarding trends first, I think what we've seen very quickly now is a change of personal habits purely out of necessity. It began with social distancing, of course, and then it became limited movement, and our movement will probably, in my opinion, remain limited to some degree, at least until a vaccine has been found. So we've been forced indoors for the most part, and no doubt remain very, very cautious with our movement and our exposure to other people for the foreseeable future. But life obviously needs to go on. We still need to communicate. We need to connect. And based on what Icons AV has seen so far, a huge spike in the need for video conferencing solutions. That was the initial spike. But more so for collaboration technology. I think that's where we're going to go next, which is a little bit of a leap. I'll explain what I mean by collaboration. But by default, out of necessity, we're about to take, I think, the next meaningful tech leap throughout.
Yeah.
We need to be able to continue to function and be productive. And so out of necessity, we've got to go there. For example, now we're all on Zoom, and it's quickly become the norm, even for people who didn't know it existed a month ago. It has its limitations, of course, but as a video conferencing platform, it does the job very, very well. Which brings me to your, what would be the nice to have technologies in the collaboration space? The idea of collaboration technology is to replicate the functionality of an actual meeting. So as close as we can get to as if we were sitting next to each other. So remembering that people will be spending more time at home, working remotely, traveling as little as possible, they will need to interact at as high a level as possible. Things that we would normally take for granted if we were sitting next to each other. So let's say one of us on this conference right now wanted to share content, watch a video clip together, edit a spreadsheet, coordinate calendars, save the session, recall it next time, use our cell phones, tablets to cast content to each other in real time. And you could perform these functions sitting anywhere in the world, providing you've got the right hardware and software in place. All you need is a good internet connection, which I know we're going to get to. So we're talking about hardware and or software that would bring residents and homeowners associations together, remote learners, employees, employers. And when you calculate the costs and time saving from not having to travel to and from the office every day, to and from the airport, it's in fact quite a sensible and affordable way of moving forward.
Yes.
The technology is very much up to speed. It's available. It's here to be embraced. We've been installing it for a good few years already. So definitely not science fiction, and it's just as well because it's now very much needed.
Great, well done. Thanks very much, Cliff. Yeah, I was saying the other day, my Toyota Fortuner now uses 1 liter per 3 weeks. You know, it's no longer per kilometer anymore. So I filled up my car and it's still full. I've used it once in 4 weeks. Thanks for that, Cliff. Very, very interesting and enlightening. So I'm gonna move over to Nicol finally from Vodacom. And you know, Nicol, I want to ask you, listening to everything. I mean, it's you'll have to watch this video about 5 or 6 times to really get into the meat of it, because it's just so much exciting and interesting stuff out there. But we'll find ourselves frustrated from a technological point of view if we don't have capable and reliable network connections. And Vodacom is obviously a main player in this market. Are there any new technologies that exist to roll out more powerful, more stable, more sustainable network solutions? Over to you, Nicol.
Can you hear me? There we go. So I know there's been a lot flying around recently regarding 5G, which causes COVID-19. So just to put everyone at ease, no, 5G does not cause COVID-19. It is a new technology that we are going into and looking at. Vodacom does have 5G and is slowly rolling it out. Apart from that, Vodacom is investing 500 million Rand back into the network infrastructure within the next 2 months. Due to the growing demand, there's been a 60% increase in data usage over the last 2 months, obviously due to everybody working from home now. So Vodacom is very, very focused on getting the network capability in all the areas to sustain the increase in data usage and to ensure that everybody stays online. I know I've had some clients that have been experiencing issues, you know, so we basically focus on getting technicians out there to alleviate and resolve issues, technical issues, as soon as possible. ICASA has also released additional spectrum, which Vodacom is one of them. So we're also going to be using that to ease the congestion on the network. Some of our base stations and radio stations is able to use that spectrum immediately. So the teams are busy with that.
Yeah, cool.
Yes, just some additional info. Vodacom and Discovery have partnered, creating an online platform where all South Africans, not just restricted to Discovery members, but all South Africans have access to medical help via online doctor consultations. So those are available on both Discovery and Vodacom websites, and there's no charge. So those charges are 0 rated. Vodacom's also got an e-learning portal, which is 0 rated for all learners. We've got over 100 or 1 million learners registered using our educational portal. So all the latest syllabuses are available according to the Department of Education. So pupils are able to get the necessary learning material. And then specifically in my environment, LTE while you wait, we've launched where clients that apply for fibre specifically and wait for fibre can apply or automatically can get LTE while you wait, which is a wireless router. You get 100 gig capacity bundle, and available for 30 days. And the first month is free. So RAM delivers to your door. It's easy to install. And once your fiber gets installed, it automatically switches over to fiber using the same router. So we're trying to work on easing and getting clients connected quicker. So, well, hence us using the LTE while you wait for your fiber services. So, and that's that.
Cool. Well done, Nicole. Thanks very much indeed. So thanks, everyone. That was absolutely fascinating. Corina, I want to go back to you. You want to continue on something. I'm hoping you're also going to retouch on the communication portal itself, just very, very briefly. And then I want to talk about cybercrime. So anyone that wants to talk about the ongoing threat of this, please remember that. So Corina, let's go back to you.
Hi, good morning. The community, well, I mean, with regulations changing so often, stage 5, stage 4, what does it mean? I mean, we had a call yesterday, didn't we, where we spent nearly 2 hours with managers from various estates trying to analyze exactly what each regulation means. So if we're spending 2 hours deconstructing legal terms, then how do we actually transmit that information accurately to the residents and the homeowners and actually get them to engage and actually read the information? So those are the challenges that we have from a community perspective and community portal perspective. But I would really like to send a message to the future viewers of this video, if I may. And one of the things that I think is very seldom spoken about is that South Africa is the global leader of gated communities, right? I mean, no one really does it better or more than we do. And we juggle so many different things. We juggle high tech, high humanity, high data volume, and highly unique needs, because each estate is absolutely its own little ecosystem. So the integration really needs to come in terms of playing to our strengths, and instead of recreating and redesigning the wheel. If we get this right, everything that we're doing moving forward is a case study for the world, because, you know, gated communities are only going to become more and more popular. There is a way that we can be more open while maintaining our IP. We've all learned in the last 10 years how valuable open source sharing is. And I'm not suggesting that we all open source our products, but there needs to be a little bit more collaboration. You know, our products, REDi, we follow the life cycle of the property, whether it's during the development, whether it's during communication, whether it's, you know, for leads management, whether it's the map. And we have the longevity, but we can't do everything. And this is why, you know, I'd really like for future companies that come on board to really perhaps look at how they can integrate rather than reinvent the wheel, so that those that do use the portal can continue to use the portal and enhance as needed, rather than having to chop and change. Does this talk to that? Does that talk to the other? And then what about the gate? And what about security? And then, you know, what about booking systems for the golf estate? And, you know, so that's my invitation to future viewers in the industry at large is, please can we play to our strengths, not reinvent the wheel, and therefore be ambassadors for the world, because we are in many ways.
Yeah, in some respects, we may even be ambassadors of the world in respect of how we're handling this virus. I don't know, but that's another 1 hour webinar. So what I'm going to then suggest, yes,
if I may,
Raphael.
Just in terms of response to Corina, I feel like she doesn't need to be too despondent. I mean, in terms of the panelists over here, I think 3 or 4 of us are already tightly integrated with each other.
Yes.
So that move is already taking place.
Correct. 100% correct. And I'm so glad you raised that, because I was going to remark on it, but you now have for me, thank you, was that in many of your responses to the questions, you actually referred to other people that are in this room in equal proportion to referring to yourself, which is fantastic. I mean, I know that Cathexis and Axis are involved. I know that Impro and Idemia are working together. Vodacom will work with all of us because they can. And I think, you know, Corina is probably one of those people because her background and the work that she does, it may be a good idea, depending on what this short-term future holds for us, to ask Corina to perhaps, you know, set up a kind of ongoing feature of this forum from a facilitator point of view, and maybe help us in this whole area one step at a time. So that would be fantastic. All right, is there anyone with some closing comments? I see Corina wants to add something in before we close.
Just to underline what you were saying about future events, you know, one of the things that we're potentially talking about is, you know, communications 101 with estate managers. You know, bless their hearts, they have so many things to look after on an estate, whether it's a 100-resident estate or 5,000 units. They have so many things that they must look after, and communications is a landscape that changes every 10 minutes in terms, you're never really on top of it. You're never really on top of what you can do, what you could do. How do you hack it? How do you streamline it? How do you automate it? How do you improve it? How do you generate engagement? So we're really hoping to launch that webinar in terms of Communication 101 for the managers, and hopefully also social media and communication etiquette for the residents, because it's a two-pronged approach. And hopefully that will make the managers' lives easier consequently. So yes, I'd love to continue having these events, absolutely.
So I just wanted to say thanks to Andre, to Dean, to Vanessa, Raphael, Nicol, Corina, Ingo, and Cliff, who add immense valuable input to this industry. Their presence and your presence at chapter meetings, which is not going to change. We may do more online stuff, but the minute we can get back face to face, we're going to do that. There's nothing like being together face to face, but we'll use second prize and do these. And I know that you guys will make yourself available, where you can set up your own Zoom meetings directly with our members. And you know, I wanted to just appeal to estate managers and directors that are watching this, that our business partners do immense work for ARC, and the work that they do is keeping the membership fees of our members as low as they are, in a nutshell. If it weren't for our business partners, and specifically today, in your rooms today, our membership fees would not be as low as they are. So please contact the guys if something that they said grabbed you, and you want to know more or enter into a discussion about it, please feel free to contact any of the guys and ladies that were on this podcast or this video today. So thanks everybody for attending, and we'll catch up soon. And follow the stream, because we're going to be having sessions with all of the people here today. So thank you for watching.